What is going on, Fantasy Baseball Universe? This is Bourbon N Ball. We are bringing you Week 21 lineups, pitchers, streamers. This is going to be fun. You're not going to want to miss this. What's going on? This is Bourbon N Ball. I am Doug, alongside my lifelong friend from Clearwater, Florida, Mikey V, and we are bringing you Week 21 matchups, pitchers, streamers. Oh my, it is going to be fun. As you know, if you're in a 12 league, next week, this week, Monday, is pretty much your last week before playoffs. You're going right into playoffs after this week. So something to keep a pulse on, as Mike always says, right? You're going to need to maybe potentially win this. Who knows? You could maybe get a bye. You could, obviously, seeding. Maybe you need the win to get in. Somebody else has to lose. That's just how the cards break down in fantasy baseball. So we're here to set you up for success for Week 21. How does that sound? So amazing. Let's talk Week 21 pitchers, some must starts. And again, yes, you'll start your studs. These are some matchups I do like a little better than a regular stud matchup, right? And let me explain it to you. I'll break it down. Mikey V will then take over and talk some sense into why I might be right, why I might be wrong, maybe a little bit of both. But let's start. Toronto starting pitcher Dylan Cease. And again, there's no rhyme or reason between these five. They're just there, right? So I have Dylan Cease at the top. Friday versus Seattle. 8-5 on the year is really crazy when you look at these numbers. 144 innings, 209 strikeouts, a 2.3 ERA, 64 walks, which I think is at least the top 5 in that category for starting pitchers. But he's given you 15.6 points a start. That is really good. His last 2 starts, 1-0, 13 innings, 18 strikeouts, 8 walks. 41.24 points. His first start was versus the Yankees. His second start was at New York against the Yankees. His last 9 starts hasn't gone more than 6 innings just once, going 4-1 in that span, which includes a complete game shutout at Boston, reaching double-digit strikeouts in 4 of those 5. This is a great matchup. I feel those double-digit strikeouts could reappear. We all know Seattle is a hit-or-miss team. They're playing in Toronto. So the leverage to me goes to Cease, and I think complete domination on this one. Then we got Philly starting pitcher Zack Wheeler Monday at the Mariners in Seattle, Sunday at the Angels in Los Angeles. 10-4 in the year, 120 innings, 144 strikeouts, a 2.90 ERA. He's giving you 14.4 a start. His last 2, 0-1, 10 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts, 6 earned, 5 walks. Still gave you positive points with 5.8. His first start was at St. Louis against the Cardinals, where he got the loss, but then the no decision at home versus Miami. I know he's 0-3 in his last 6, but he did go 7, giving up 2, 9 strikeouts versus the Dodgers, and still got hit with the loss. Then his last start versus the Marlins got a no decision. He only went 5, but gave up 2 and 7 strikeouts. So, he hasn't been horrible. He hasn't gone over 5 1/3 in his last 4, but I think against Seattle and the Angels, he should be able to rack up, again, strikeouts. And, the quality start you want, but I think worst-case scenario in here, he'll get a no decision, and he'll give you a bunch of strikeouts. So we all seen, even with the loss for the week in those 2 starts, he still gave you positive points. So something to think about. Next up, and I'm not the biggest fan of this particular pitcher. I think Mike knows that, and we're talking about Padres starting pitcher Michael King. Tuesday, he's at home versus the Pirates. On the year, 8-9, 149 innings, 129 strikeouts, 58 walks, a 3.3 ERA, 9.4 start, which is, I'd say, a little above average. Not great, but a little above. His last 2 starts, 1-1, 12 2/3, 8 strikeouts, 3 walks, 5 earned, still give you 24 points. His first start was at Cleveland against the Guardians. Then his second start was New York against the Mets. He has gone at least 6 innings in 7 of his last 9. He does average a home run a game, but he's at home going up against a Pirates team that has fallen back down to earth just a bit. My only knock on him is his strikeouts. He's always been, at least I always felt he was a big strikeout guy. This year, not so much. Maybe it's just the innings that are maybe having an issue with that, and who knows, right? But I do think he's gonna come out and again, this looks like a matchup on paper where he should be able to win and dominate. My only concern is I wonder if the innings, like I said, are just starting to creep up. But I love the matchup. I do like him in this one. And then I got Red Sox starting pitcher Peyton Tolley Tuesday at the Marlins in Miami. 8-6, 120 innings, 134 strikeouts, a 3.08 ERA. He's giving you 12.2 a start. Listen, his last 2 starts, 1-0, 1 no decision, 13 innings, 10 strikeouts, 3 earned, 4 walks, 28 points. His first start was at Toronto. He went 8 innings, gave you the win. Then he got the no decision at home versus Arizona. He's looked great his last 4 starts, really racking up the strikeouts. Again, I think the trend continues against this Marlins team. I think he should get you the win. I think he should get you the quality start. So I am running him out there with no hesitation whatsoever. And then last but not least, this is the one that might be a little debatable. I know, Mike, we had talked about him earlier before coming on the show. I'm talking about Toronto starting pitcher Jose Soriano. He's Saturday. He's versus Seattle at home. On the year, 10-6, 139 innings, 136 strikeouts, a 3.2 ERA, 62 walk, but 10.7 a start, which is still pretty good. Last 2 starts, 1-0, 1 no decision, 11 2/3, 6 strikeouts, 4 earned, 2 walks, 22 points. His first start was at home versus Boston. He got the no decision. Then he got the win in Tampa against the Rays. I think since this trade, he's looked reborn, in my opinion, since he's been acquired by Toronto. Yeah, he's 1-0 in his last 3, but you could easily make the case he could have another win. He did go 6 innings, giving up 1 earned, 4 strikeouts versus the Red Sox in that no decision. Wins might be tough to come by with that up and down offense, but I do like him in this one at home versus a struggling Mariners team, like I've talked about. I do think this is again the recipe for success, especially for strikeout pitchers. I mean, this is a lineup they should be able to dominate. So I'm running them out there. I do like them.
I mean, I'm absolutely cool with that. And also, Toronto's actually playing for a wild card spot still, even 3 games under 500, which is just nuts. It's just a weird year in the AL. But you got to think, with the Jose Soriano, I think he's starting to find his groove a little bit. We've seen it in the last start there with Toronto. And now he's playing against a Seattle team at home. Again, they're competing. So Jose Soriano, maybe he's turned that corner. I like the play. I really do. I think that's a great play this week. Same thing with Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease is still in his Cy Young season here, really, for the most part. Maybe the wins don't look like it looks like that, but for the most part, when you look at his stats going through even like the last 5 starts, Doug, he's legit. The strikeouts are there. The earned runs are way lower than what we're used to when we saw him before when he came from San Diego. And, he's just really finding his groove. They're getting their money's worth over in Toronto. Zack Wheeler, look, he hasn't a win since the All-Star break. I was just looking this up earlier today, and he's got like a 1.39 whip. But the strikeouts are there. He's more than an inning per strikeout guy, or exactly that. So I do think he's due. It's just some guys, it's kind of crazy to even say that, but some guys you can say are just due. And Zack Wheeler is. I think his stuff is there. Obviously, some bad luck with the rain delay. I think we talked about in Baltimore a few weeks back, and then really just hasn't really put it together since. But he's due to have a really good outing. I think both these matchups are favorable. We're kind of beating up on the Mariners this week. But hey, it is what it is. You got to call a spade at times. And then same thing with the Angels as well. It's not like they're overhitting right now in that AL West. So 2 favorable matchups for Zack Wheeler, who should at least get 1 win out of both of these matchups. Michael King, like you mentioned the innings, Doug, I think his most innings he's had is about 172 to 176 or so back in 2024. Last year, injury riddled a little bit, but he's right on pace at that same thing. I think he's at 130, 140 right now. So we're looking at about 170 innings. So he is getting to that point. But again, he's been pitching really well for the Padres. One of their better pitchers, I'd say, so far in the second half. Yes, they added on Casey Mize. He's been pretty decent, but we know he's day-to-day now. So again, Michael King is just really doing his work, doing his thing against the Pirates. It should be against Ashcraft. So, I'm sorry, was it Braxton Ashcraft? Is that what? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
There we go. So that should be a pretty fun matchup. Again, just Michael King. He does have some nasty stuff. I'm a Michael King guy. You know that, Doug. We talked about that. So again, I'm cool with rolling him out. And again, next week he'll be a 2-starter by the looks of it. So, again, maybe he's not owned in a lot of leagues right now. I don't think he is actually he's actually 83, so pretty decent. Never mind. But I was going to say, if he was out there, you got to grab him right now because he was a free agent in some leagues earlier this year, which I found very surprising. Going down the list, Peyton Tolley. We're talking about Peyton Tolley again, Doug. I mean, we didn't think this guy was going to be this impactful in fantasy so early in his career, but man, here we are, and we're talking about him a third, fourth time here. Again, just a favorable matchup against Miami. Peyton Tolley has proven week in, week out that he's pretty much the real deal, and you kind of know what you're going to get from him as well. So again, I'm good with the matchup of Peyton Tolley. I think the Red Sox are still going to win some baseball games too down the stretch. Really favorable matchups.
All right, let's start digging into some unfavorable matchups here. And again, you'll start your studs, but I will say some of these guys, maybe most of them, even though they're owned in maybe 90% plus leagues, I still would be a little hesitant starting all of them, or most of them. And let me tell you why right now. Let's start from the top here. Marlins starting pitcher, Sandy Alcantara, Tuesday versus Boston. Yes, he's at home. 13-8, 176 innings, 131 strikeouts, a 3.46 ERA. He's still giving you 13 to start. His last 2 starts, 0-2, 13 innings, 3 strikeouts. That's it. 4 earned, 5 walks. Still ended up with positive points, 5 points total. His first start was at Cincinnati against the Reds, and it was at Philly against the Phillies. I think the innings are starting to become an issue with him. This is a guy that's missed a ton of time. He's on pace for about 200 innings. His strikeouts, I mean, they've almost been non-existent his last 2 starts with just 3. So I wonder if the Marlins, are just going to continue to just run him out there and not give him the break that I think he needs. I think he needs a break, especially they're not really playing for much. Just based off his recent starts, I don't think I'd have him in my lineup going against Boston at Boston. Like I would probably bench him if I owned him in fantasy. And you're talking to a guy that really reluctantly benched a Paul Skeens a couple times. So you just got to know when to do it. I mean, you can't be, as much as I know, like there are Sandy guys out there that love Sandy, and Jacob DeGrom, we'll talk about him next. You do have to look at the numbers. You do have to do what's right as far as your team in this last week before playoffs. If you desperately need this, I don't know if I'm running a Sandy out there against the Red Sox. Same thing. I don't know if I'm running a Jacob DeGrom. I mean, I would probably run Jacob DeGrom, but I would run Sandy. So let's run into his numbers, Jacob DeGrom here. So he's Tuesday. He's at the White Sox in Chicago, 98 on the year, 126 innings, 157 strikeouts, a 3.7 ERA, 10.8 a start. His last start, 1-0, 6 innings, 10 strikeouts, no earned, a walk, 27 points. That was versus the Nationals at home in Texas. He looked vintage DeGrom in this start, but a couple things I want to point out. Number one, that Nationals team did not have James Woods. They did not have CJ Abrams. So it's almost like they wanted him to get to that 2,000 strikeout milestone. Almost seemed like it was too easy, right? And the second thing I want to point out is, yes, that start was a great start. That was vintage DeGrom. But let's look at the 6 starts prior to that. Not going over 5 innings, and any of the 6 going 1-3 in that span. I mean, 2 innings, 2 earned, 3 strikeouts at Los Angeles against the Angels, 3 1/3, 5 earned, 3 strikeouts at Houston against the Astros, 4 2/3, 5 earned, 6 strikeouts versus the White Sox. I just think he might revert back to how he was prior to this past national start. Probably just going 5 innings, maybe 6 strikeouts, giving up maybe 2 to 3 earned. You still roll him out there, but there is hesitation, right? The offense for the White Sox has averaged 4.7 runs in their last 10. So take it for what it's worth. I mean, he did get beat by this same White Sox team not a couple starts ago, and he was at home. Now he's not home. Now he's in Chicago. There is some hesitation. Then again, how to keep true to the theme of this show, I would maybe steer clear of Marlins, the Mariners. Excuse me, keep constantly confusing Marlins, Mariners. I don't know why. Mariners starting pitcher Emerson Hancock Friday at Toronto, 7-7 on the year, 133 innings, 125 strikeouts, a 3.3 ERA. He's giving you 9.8 a start. Last 2 starts, 1-0, so he does have a no decision. 12 innings, 14 strikeouts, 5 earned, 2 walks, 30 points. His first start was at Houston. Then he was home versus the Cubs, 1-3 in his last 5, giving up 5 home runs. 12 earned in 27 innings. The strikeouts are nice, but he's been all over. 4 2/3 versus the Rays. Then you go 7 versus Houston in Houston. 5 2/3 at home versus the Cubs. I think the Blue Jays, they haven't been horrible lately. They are playing for a wild card spot. And again, Seattle's offense, I think they're so bad. It's one of those games where Emerson's going to have to go out there and he's going to have to pitch perfect. And to get the win, he's going to have to pitch perfect. And I just don't know if he can. The last start, here's one. He hasn't given up a run, was all the way back to July 5th. So you're talking about over a month and a half, almost 2 months. He's given up a run in at least every single start since then. So again, at Toronto, maybe steer a little clear of that one. Next up is Rays starting pitcher Shane McClanahan. Friday versus the Padres. Yes, he's at home, but last 2 starts, both no decisions, 8 1/3, 8 strikeouts, 3 earned, a walk, gave you 9 points, and they were winnable, right? First at home versus the Orioles, then at Baltimore versus the Orioles. I don't think he's quite stretched out yet after coming back from the IL. Then on top of that, going up against this red-hot Padres team, I would probably steer clear for him at least another start. I think when playoffs come around, he will be stretched out. But again, they didn't really give him the full satisfaction of a rehab, right? They didn't give him the handful of starts. They kind of just called him back up from the IL and periodically just started stretching him out in the major league level, which is kind of weird, I think, So some hesitation. I don't think I would start him this week against the Padres, even if he's at home. Even if he pitches good, he's probably not even going to go 5. Then I got, last but not least, Mets starting pitcher Nolan McLean. Saturday at home versus the Astros, 9-8, 142 innings, 162 strikeouts, a 3.3 ERA, 54 walks, 12.1 a start. It's a pleasant surprise considering how he started the year. His last start, 1-0, 6 innings, 1 earned, 3 strikeouts, 4 walks, 19 points versus the Padres at home. In his last 13 starts, he's failed to go 6 innings twice. All right. Going 6-4 in that span, but they have been clunkers in there. He's got six innings, 9 strikeouts, 6 earned versus the Cubs, 5 innings, 8 strikeouts, 5 earned at Cleveland. I think he might have his hands full with this Astros lineup. So I'd be, again, a little hesitant to just run him out there on Saturday versus the Astros.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, the Astros, again, still playing for a playoff spot. They're going to win their division, looks like, hopefully. And right now, I know the Mets played pretty good baseball these last couple weeks, but again, with Nolan McLean building up the innings already as is, I'm probably steering away. Speaking of building up innings, let's talk about Shane McClanahan for a second, right? He missed 2 full seasons of baseball. And even that 2024 season, I was looking up earlier, Doug, 115 innings he's pitched. He's about at 115 innings already. He's a little below that right now. So I think probably the season goal for him, I would say, be about 120, 130 innings by the end of it. Along with, like what you said, he's building up a pitch count to get ready for a run in the playoffs as well. So these games that he's pitching in, I've noticed that I'm seeing 71 pitches, 70 pitches. Like, he is not going deep into games. He could be in there longer. And he's producing at a pretty decent level. But again, it's hard to trust a guy down the stretch that's still kind of coming back from an injury. He's kind of been on and off of the IL a little bit again this year. Even though it's a home game, which obviously Tampa Bay is playing really good at home, it's just a matchup I'd probably want to steer away from, just because with Shane McClanahan, if his pitch count does get too high and they are going to limit him, you don't know what's going to happen. And San Diego's been playing pretty good baseball, too, on top of that. So, again, maybe stay away, find a different option for Shane. Emerson Hancock, I mean, look, he's been pitching pretty good lately. Not bad, 17 innings, 17 strikeouts, right? 7 earned runs, which is pretty decent in 3 games. And surprisingly, I'm looking at the standings. Unbelievable. Mariners are 2.5 games back from a playoff spot, which is so gross in my opinion, just because again we talk about their offense and how lackluster it is, and they could have so many more wins if they just did have an offense with this pitching. Broken records over here. But again, playing in Toronto, I think is playing better baseball right now than the Mariners. Again, Emerson Hancock, it's no offense. I just think if you had a better option, you go with that other option. Same thing with Jacob DeGrom. Look, I'm going through his last 5 games here. It's kind of been brutal, right? Yeah, he had the 6 innings, 10 Ks, which looked great. But then he, pitched 2 1/3. Then again, he pitched 5 innings, and then the outing after that, 3 innings. So Jacob DeGrom, very inconsistent, I feel, especially his last 5 starts or so. So again, against the White Sox, first place White Sox team, let's remind ourselves again how good they are. Unbelievable. But again, I'm probably steering away just because it's just been really inconsistent with them. And yes, the last start looked promising. I'm just steering away. And like you said, you were talking about Sandy versus DeGrom. I think I would start with Sandy over DeGrom if I had to pick between one of the two.
Really?
I do, and it's just because of that inconsistency, like I said earlier. And then, like Sandy, he's a workhorse. He's like an old school type workhorse. He goes 7, 8 innings these games for no reason. We talked about why are we putting him out there, but they're going to put him out there. He's at 175 innings, give or take, right now, which was just about what he pitched last year already as well. So he's going to hit 200 innings for the first time, I think, in about 5 or 6 seasons. When he pitched 228 for that Cy Young season. So again, is there going to be fatigue going into it? I think there will. I think there is. I think we're starting to see that already with him, especially with the strikeout numbers, right? We're consistently seeing 7, 8, 6 strikeouts. Now these last 2 starts, we saw 1, we saw 2. So I do think there's a little fatigue there going on with him. So I would probably want to see if I had other options rather than these guys that are on this list, if I could. If I'm going to have to put Sandy out there, I got to put Sandy out there. He's a top 15 pitcher. I totally understand it. These are the guys that got you there. We're just saying we only got a couple weeks left, so you better be really strategic on who you're pputting out there because that could make or break your season.
Right. And I think the real thing to point out is try not to overthink it sometimes. Sometimes you just you're like, oh well, it makes a little more sense to put this guy in over this guy, and then they got crushed, and you're like, oh, why do I do that? Why? Happens all the time.
Especially at this time of year. Like you said, overthinking it is like it happens in every fantasy sport, if not the most in baseball.
Right. So let's talk lineups. Let's talk some favorable lineups. And again, like we just said, you'll start your studs, right? But why not go pick up if you need to fill an IL spot or whatever, maybe pick up a couple guys from some of these teams because the matchups are pretty favorable, I will say. And let me run down them real quick. So you got first and foremost, again, no rhyme or reason really, but Cleveland Guardians, 3 games at the Angels, 3 games versus the Royals, 6-4 in their last 10. They did lose a series to the Padres, but since then they've won back-to-back against the Giants, the Rockies, averaging 4.3 a game for runs. I think that trend continues against this team. They'll face George Klassen, Wilbert Urena, Grayson Rodriguez, Michael Wacha, Daniel Lynch, Seth Lugo. So really none of those people. I mean, maybe Wacha, maybe Urena, but other than that, everybody else on who they're going to see is not, might not, dare I say, not even rosterable, right? Then we got Phillies, 3 games at Seattle against the Mariners, 3 games at Los Angeles against the Angels, 8-2 in their last 10. They are 8 in a row they've won. They're looking like they turned that corner after a rough start to the month. They've won the series against the Twins, Marlins, and currently the Cardinals. They're up 2-0 this Sunday. So whatever outcome that happens, they still win the series. They'll see, as of now, no one scheduled on Monday, but you still got Logan Gilbert. You still got George Kirby from the Mariners. And if this was, the start of the season, I'd say, well, there should be some hesitation. But knowing what we know about the Seattle Mariners rotation and how bad they've looked, especially George Kirby lately, no hesitation, right? Then from the Angels, you've got Reed Detmers, Ryan Johnson, and Kikuchi is coming back from the 60-day IL to start Sunday. He's coming back from the IL. Like, he's going to get crushed. His numbers in rehab, his ERA was a 15.63. Man, if there's a time to just like own a half a team in fantasy and stardom, it would be the Phillies this week for sure. Then I got the Washington Nationals on here. Surprise, right? 4 games versus the Rockies, 3 games versus Marlins. So they got 7. They're at home all 7. Yes, they're 2-8 in their last 10, but they've scored 16 runs in that span, which includes a lineup that has no James Woods, CJ Abrams. However, Abrams should be back in fairly soon. I want to say it maybe some point this week, maybe Wednesday-ish. But, they're going to see Ryan Fletner, Kyle Freeland. He's day-to-day, so who knows? If he hits the IL, could be a bullpen game for them. Tanner Gordon, Gabriel Hughes from the Rockies. Yuri Perez is a pretty good matchup. I think he looked really good his last start, so there might be some tough love in that one. But Jason Junk, and as of now, no one's scheduled for Sunday. That could be a bullpen game. So there is some opportunity for that. St. Louis Cardinals is next. They got 3 games versus the Orioles at home, 3 games versus the Pirates at home. So they're at home again, all 6 games, 5-5 in their last 10. They did win the series against the Cubs and the Reds. They will lose the series, like I said, against the Phillies this weekend. But they'll see Chris Bassett, Kyle Bradish, Trevor Rogers from the Orioles, Jared Jones, Carmen Melazinski from the Brewers, from the Pirates, and Braxton Ashcraft. So honestly, I think the only real, true, tough matchup would be Braxton. Other than that, I'm not really too scared on anybody else. And then last but not least, we've talked about them. Chicago White Sox. They got 3 games versus the Rangers at home. Then they go to Minnesota and play the Twins for a 3-game set. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They did sweep the Tigers. I mean, they lost the series to the Cubs, and they are at the risk of losing their current series to the lowly Mets for some reason. But they have been scoring runs, like I said, 4.7 in their last 10. And they'll see Kumar Rocker, Jacob DeGrom, Mackenzie Gore, come on, from the Rangers, Mean Dean Kramer, Bailey Ober, Zebby Matthews from the Twins. Man, it just screams like a week of like home run. Like Kami's gonna have like 4 home runs this week, just based off of these people, these starting pitchers that they're gonna see. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think this list of teams, it's just like, just deploy all your stars, right? If you got White Sox players, put Murakami in there. You got to put Miguel Vargas, who's been on a red-hot streak lately. Even Tristan Peters has been swinging a pretty decent bat these past couple weeks as well for the White Sox. So, again, with these matchups, you might as well just throw these guys out there and see if it still sticks. Because, again, not just because they're playing kind of, matchable teams, but they've been playing pretty good for themselves as well. Same thing with the Cardinals. Again, it's those same guys, the J.J. Witherhalts of the world. Obviously, Alec Burleson, Jordan Walker, we talked about him for Friday. He kind of turned a corner now this past week. So let's see if he can keep that up going into this week with the 6 games at home. So that's going to be good for the Cardinals. I think I love that for them. The Nationals. Look, you got a bunch of no-name guys making noise for them. I got the list right here, Doug. I don't even know if I can even pronounce half these guys' names. Andres Chaparro, and Merlelik Ortiz, Ruiz, the catcher. I mean, these guys, I don't even know who they are. I'm not even we're the ones with the microphones, and I don't even know who these guys are. That's crazy. That's what baseball is too. It's next man up mentality. Like you said, CJ Abrams has been day to day for 4 or 5 games now. Now you give these guys opportunities to see if they can come up and produce, which they have. So again, if on those names that's still out there that I just mentioned, they're probably 1% owned, if that. Maybe take a risk on it because, again, the Rockies is a favorable matchup. They got no pitching. Miami, we know what they've been doing as late as well in this second half. So, again, I think there's an opportunity there to really kind of maybe steal one, especially with a couple of those guys I just mentioned there. And then, like I said, it's the stars for the Philadelphia Phillies. That's a no-brainer. Alec Bowen, throw him in there as well. Even Brandon Marsh is starting to heat up again like he did earlier in the year. Maybe not as hot, but still swinging a relevant bat in fantasy. So, again, there's probably about 6 or 7 guys on that team alone from an offensively standpoint. If you add in Schwarber, if you add in Trey Turner, if you add in Harper, you can start all those guys and feel comfortable going into this week. They are red hot. And, again, I like the Phillies. I really do think they're going to sneak up this year. Especially down the stretch in the playoffs. And then the Cleveland Guardians, again, Stephen Kwan, Doug, man, guy continues to still hit, really good to see. We know the struggles that he had earlier in the year and last year. So again, Stephen Kwan, I don't want to say he's all the way back, but do we want to say, he's making some noise? We can say that. Same thing with Joe Adell, right? Kind of found a power surge these last couple weeks. Yeah, the strikeouts are there, but we always say if you can back it up with the production, they kind of go missing a little bit. So Joe Adell hitting that ball really well. He might be out there in a league or two if you're looking for an outfielder help. But again, I'm probably deploying him, especially against his former team, against the Angels. He's going to hit a home run against the Angels going back to Anaheim. And then again, against the Kansas City Royals, one of 3 teams that are really out of it in the AL. So again, just start those guys. And then maybe this is a pickup for Jose Ramirez too, Doug. We know he has not been the same guy this year that we've seen previously, but maybe this is the week that he starts getting going. He still has over almost 300 points in most, standard leagues. So, we could see a little bit more, I think, from him coming down the stretch.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like that Guardians team. I mean, look what they did last year down the stretch. They went on that ridiculous win streak when, they got in and made some noise. It's a good team. We know what they're missing. We know starting pitching has always been their rough spot, and they could use a bat or two. But like you said, I mean, people are stepping up. Stephen Kwan, for all that's worth, yeah, it is a down season, but he's not striking out. I mean, I looked the other day. I mean, the guy's averaging like 2-3 walks a game this past. Like I looked yesterday, I think he had 3 walks. So he's getting on base. He might not be stealing bases, but he's getting on base, which means he's giving you some positive points as opposed to earlier this year when he was either grounding out or flying out. So he is getting on base and he's giving you some points.
Hey, baby steps, right direction, especially in the right time of the year now too.
It's true. Talk about getting hot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at some lineups you might want to stay away from. Some really rough lineups. And I'll start again from the top here. We got the Mets, 3 games versus the Brewers, 3 games versus the Astros. Yes, they're 6-4 in their last 10. They swept the Nationals, and they did win the series against the Padres, but they could lose their current series with the White Sox. It all depends on today's outcome. The competition does get tougher, though, this week. They're going to see Kyle Harrison. They're going to see Dustin May, who was like, but still, Dustin May, when he's going, right? Robert Gasser from the Brewers, Hunter Brown, Christian Javier. No one's scheduled for Sunday's game, but again, like these are some pretty decent pitchers when they're going, and it all depends if they're going to go against the Mets. So if Hunter Brown finds a groove, that could be a tough day for them. Same thing with Kyle Harrison, same thing with Christian Javier, Dustin May. Like those are some of the lineups that that's a lineup I would probably stay away from just a little bit. I still like it more than some of these other ones, though. I think like the Yankees, for instance, talk about them. 3 games versus the Astros, 4 games versus the Red Sox. Yes, they're playing 7. Yes, they're 6-4 in their last 10. But they did lose a series to the Jays. They're winning the series against the Orioles. They could lose another series to the Jays, depending on today's outcome. As of now, the Astros, yes, they have no one scheduled Tuesday, but they're going to go and see Peter Lambert, a surprising Hayden Wiesenski, who is 3-1. Then you're going to see Patrick Sandoval, Ranger Suarez, Jake Bennett from the Red Sox. No one penciled in that Saturday start, which is the doubleheader. So I'm wondering what they're going to do with that one. But still, I mean, those are quality arms, very quality arms right there. And Seattle Mariners, 3 games versus the Phillies, 3 games at Toronto, 6-4 in their last 10. They lost a series to the Yankees and the Brewers. They won a series against the Astros and the Cubs after being up 2-0 on Sunday. So even if they lose today, they still won the series. But they're going to see Zach Wheeler. They're going to see a red-hot Aaron Nola. Who would have thunk that? They're going to see Jesus Luzardo, who honestly is a strikeout machine from the Phillies. And then Dylan Cease, Jose Soriano, and probably I think one of the easier matchups on the week is Max Scherzer from the Blue Jays. But everybody else should give them their hands full as far as competition is concerned. Then the Los Angeles Angels, 3 games at home versus the Guardians, 3 games at home versus the Phillies. Yeah, 6-4 in their last 10. Lost a series to the Royals. They won a series against the Astros. Right now, going into Sunday against the Rangers, it's tied 1-1. So again, whoever wins will win that series for this week. But they'll see Parker Messick. They'll see Gavin Williams, Joey Cantillo from the Guardians, Andrew Painter, Christopher Sanchez, and Zach Wheeler from the Phillies. Pretty tough for them. And then last but not least, let's talk Detroit Tigers. 3 games versus the Rays, 3 games versus the Dodgers, 2-8 in their last 10. They got swept by the White Sox, lost a series to the Pirates. They're on the verge of getting swept by the Royals. Man, what a dive. I honestly, seriously, what a dive. This was a team that was leading or tied in the Central for months. And now they're just crumbling. They are crumbling. That's the only way I can explain it. And it does not get easier for them this week. They're going to see Drew Rossman, Ian Seymour, Freddie Peralta. Yeah, some of those could be hit or miss for them. But then you go play the Dodgers. You're going to see Yamamoto, Skubal, and Blake Snell. So not the 3 starters you would ever want to see in a 3-game series, which is crazy to say because they're still. I mean, you could now you're going to add Tyler Glasnow into that, and it's a scary rotation.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy that can really hit in that lineup is Kevin McGonigal. That's the only guy that really is relevant in that lineup, I feel like, even the past, 2-3 weeks. So, again, I'm not trusting anyone else to go out there and produce, right? Because we know Kerry Carpenter. We know that, Riley Green, those guys, when they're in the lineup against these type of pitchers, we know they're capable of striking out a lot in a week. So, again, I'm not even putting those type of guys out that are, I think at this point, really, Doug, streamers, in both those guys. So, and then we also know that, Max Clark really kind of took a step back since getting called up. That was a big deal. But again, he's going to go through some moves anyway because he's so, fresh, when it comes to, his MLB playing time. So, again, I'm steering away from most of those guys. I would be maybe starting Kevin McConaughey, but really that's about it, I think, in that lineup. Yeah. Going back to the Mets, I mean, look, it's just been a really bad year for them. We know we talked about Bo Bichette earlier in the year. Lindor, he's been striking out a lot lately. The power is really not all the way back there yet. And then Soto injury as well. We talk about that as well. So again, it's just kind of been a dumpster fire season for the Mets again, and just I think they're looking onward and upward to 2027. So again, tough matchups against a Brewers, monster team. They're just so good, scoring 22 runs last week against Seattle in a game, just absolutely shellacking teams. The offense is there, pitching's also there, and then going against the Astros as well. Again, AL at West, number 1 in the AL West. So again, just tough matchups all around. So I'm probably steering away from most of those guys, if not all of them. And then you go to the Yankees, and then the Yankees this year have been so bad offensively. When it comes to a fantasy perspective, Bellinger's coming back. That's great. We spoke back yesterday, Sunday. But again, that's not going to be the fix. That's not the fix. Jazz Chisholm has not been producing well consistently at all to this point. George Lombardi just got called up a couple weeks ago. He's not a needle mover as well. I think, honestly, at this point, one of your best bats is Trent Grisham in the second half. Yes, Ben Rice has been pretty decent the second half a little bit. He started picking up last week. But again, he's not been performing as well either. So again, I'm just staying away from Yankee hitters because they strike out a lot. You don't know what you're going to get from them. And they're playing against Houston. And yes, you can say, yes, the Red Sox, maybe 4-game series. That's going to be competitive, this and that. But the Red Sox have good pitching too, They're not, bottom of the barrel pitchers. They're one of the top pitching teams in baseball, believe it or not. So again, steering away from the Yankee hitters. And then same thing with Seattle. Again, I know Randy Rosarino, he's been playing pretty good lately. Yeah. But again, we know he's capable of too. That whole entire team has not been playing good baseball offensively these past couple weeks. And it's really hard to trust anyone in that lineup. And it's like, well, they got Brendan Donovan back. Oh, well, that's great. Look what he's done the past week as well for your fantasy teams. Nothing. So again, staying away from Seattle Mariner hitters for the most part, which is so disappointing for me to say because I'm a Mariners fan as well. So moving on to the Angels, man, I looked at this roster, Doug. It is not very good. It's not a very good roster. And if it's not a very good roster, how is that going to build up for your fantasy team, right? It's not going to build up well. So again, Guardians matchup. You mentioned those pitchers, Doug. Maybe they do need a little bit of help in the front line, but Peter Mezek and Gavin Williams are 2 pretty good pitchers for that team. So going against them, and then the back end of the half, you're going against Philly, where you could be producing. You got to be facing Wheeler, most likely than not, because he's going to be a 2-starter. Maybe you have Luzardo that you're going to run into as well. It's just a lot of tough matchups to the Angels. So again, just staying away from that whole entire team as general, I think, for the rest of the year. I really can't, even Zach Neto, yeah, he's great power, but again, he strikes out a ton as well.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, man. It's yeah. I mean, there's really not much you can say about that Angels lineup. You know what you're getting from Mike Trout these days. It's a 250, 240 average, some strikeouts, and some home runs once in a while. Other than that, I mean, there really isn't much to say about that lineup.
Yeah, it's too bad because you want to try to find the silver lining in some of these teams and these guys and stuff, but sometimes there just isn't one. And it's just, unfortunately a bad organization. Angels have been talked about a lot, so we don't have to hop on it any more than we need to, but that's just kind of how it goes sometimes with some of these franchises. It's unfortunate.
Right. All right, so let's talk some IL. And again, this late in the year to see some of these names on this list, that's going to tell you, depending on your league size, and of course, when the playoffs actually do start, you might not see these guys. And this is the time of year where when we update you with ILs, the every week we go down is a week less you're going to see them, which means they're definitely not going to be there. So whoever hits it, for instance, next week, you probably won't see him at all. You won't. I mean, we'll start the list. I mean, Yankees starting pitcher Max Fried, he's on the 15th IL. He's got that bone bruise in his left elbow. Same injury he dealt with earlier in the year, not as severe. They're saying just the minimum, but the minimum is 2 weeks. So in a 12 team, if you do have a Max Fried, your playoffs will not start this week. They'll start next week, which is 2 weeks, which means Fried wouldn't be back until the following matchup you have, which would be your round 2 matchup. Would you really want to run him out there? That's tough. He's been off for 2 weeks. He might not get a rehab start. What's the leash going to look like in your round 2 when you run a Max Fried out there coming back from the IL? That's what I'm talking about. There's some maybe scarcity when it comes to running some of these pitchers out here or players. Here's another one, like Dodgers outfielder Andy Page. He hit the 10-day. He's got that left hand fracture. He's looking 4 to 6 weeks, which honestly means he's more than likely not going to be there at all for you in the playoffs. Maybe if your playoffs run into the last week of the season, maybe you'll see him, right? But if they don't, then you're going to have to figure out what to do. You're going to have to stream. You're going to have to watch the show every week and get some tips on who to stream, because it's going to be really tough pickings. And I can tell you from these last couple names down here, you're not going to see any of these guys. And I own all 3 of these guys. So it is tough to say, and it's a tough pill to swallow. But A's first baseman outfielder Tyler Soderstrom, hip surgery, out for the year. You can drop him. A's shortstop Jacob Wilson, he's got pain in that shoulder he injured months ago. He's shut down. You can drop him. Diamondbacks, second base, DH, Ketel Marte. He's placed on a 10-day IL with knee inflammation. No timetable. They do expect him to play again this year, but they don't know when. They don't know how. Again, it's a tough pill to swallow, because a healthy Ketel Marte can push you over the edge to the next round. So not having him there and relying on somebody who's, there's a reason why some of these people are only 8% owned, right? They don't produce. So it's going to hurt you, man. And you're going to have to get creative, especially on a week by week. Some of these players, I don't think you can pick up somebody and start them for the next 4 weeks into your playoffs. I think you kind of got to start streaming some of these guys based off of matchups. But that's what I think. I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
No, you're 100% right. And then it's going to be limited options out there. I'm looking at one of the leagues that we're in now, and I see guys like Cody Clemens. I'm seeing Luke Keuchel. I'm seeing guys like Luis Robert. Joe Adele is a free agent in this league. He's 38% owned. I mean, those are the type of guys that you're going to be looking at in order to fill these kind of roles for these guys that aren't going to be available for you down the road. Like you said, Andy Pa has 4 to 6 weeks. That's, to me, droppable at this point. In 4 weeks, we're going to be, September 24th. And we're talking about the last week of the season. And most fantasy leagues, don't do championships in the last week of the season. They usually do it like the week before. So that's the minimum for him. So again, to me, I think his season is done from a fantasy perspective. Thank you for your service. He had a pretty good year, but you got to know. You got to know when the season's done. Tyler Soderstrom, we already know about that. Jacob Wilson, unfortunate. Again, we know about that as well. But some of these guys that are maybe coming back toward the end of the year, like really, what's the question about if they're going to produce or not? Same thing. I'm looking at Nick Pivetta. He's trying to build himself back up. He left that rehab start a couple weeks ago, but now he's back throwing. But again, he might be back in like 3-4 weeks, but what are you actually going to get out of him? And then now 3 or 4 weeks, again, you're talking championship week. You're going to throw out a Nick Pivetta championship week and his first start back? Probably not. So you got to look at the options. You got to see who's going to be out there. Garrett Mitchell, another guy we recommended a couple weeks ago, Doug, he's still kind of lingering in some areas too in free agency. So you're going to have to get creative. Yeah, absolutely right.
And what a segment. What a segment into our sleepers for the week. Wow. And of course, with tragedy comes opportunity. And what I mean by that is the A's. All right. And there they are. Now let me go over the numbers because you're like, oh, Lawrence Butler. Oh, God, let me roll my eyes. But there's some rhyme and reason. Again, so I'll start from the top. I'll start with the first guy. I am talking about A's second baseman, third baseman, outfielder, Zack Gelof, 29% owned. They're playing at home all 6 games, 3 games versus the Twins, 3 games versus the Orioles. These are pretty favorable matchups, in my opinion. He's averaging 2.2 a start for the year. He's got 14 home runs. He's got 9 stolen bases to just 70 strikeouts. Again, I like the matchup. He's got some sneaky power in there. He could play 3 different positions. Why not pick him up? Fill him in the hole you might need. You talk about a Ketel Marte replacement. You talk about an outfield replacement for Tyler Soderstrom. This is a week right here where you can pick him up and stream him. It's a great matchup. And then again, same thing. A's outfield Lawrence Butler. He's 14.8% owned. Same thing. 3 games versus Twins, 3 games versus the Orioles. Listen to this. His last 7 games, 417. 1 homer, 16 points. The thing with these guys is they're going to play every day. They're going to play every day. They're a sneaky source for points, I think, in leagues this week anyways. And because of that playing time, they're going to see the at-bats. Why not take a chance? I mean, they're both pretty high right now, especially Lawrence Butler, believe it or not. And we all know when Lawrence Butler was gone, when he came in his first year, he was really good. I mean, the potential was there for a lot of stuff. And although he hasn't lived up to it, at least for now, for maybe the last month of the season, he could. And 417 homers and 16 points in his last 7. So if you started him, that's not too bad. I do like him this week. I like them both. I'll probably start Zack Gelof. I do have him in my league. I think I'm going to start him this week. And then here's one that just to keep an eye on. I know he's day to day. Blue Jays shortstop, second baseman, Andres Jimenez. He's only 9% owned. If he doesn't, and it looks like he will miss the IL, so I don't think he's going to be on it, but he is a decent option of late. He's got 10 points in his last 4 games with 3 stolen bases. Again, monitor him, see if he's going to play, and if he does, I would throw him in there. That Blue Jays lineup obviously doesn't have Vlad Jr., but they're still playing pretty good baseball. And he's got 3 stolen bases in 4 games, solid 10 points in 4 games. Again, if you're scrambling for infield help, outfield help, I would roll the dice on any one of these guys, to be honest with you, if they're out there and they're healthy.
Yeah, Jimenez, I think, is trending up, right? We know about Toronto playing good baseball. And then same thing with both Gelof and Butler. They both got opportunities, like you said. Once one goes down, another one comes up. And I do like their matchups this week against the Twins, against the Orioles, and they're both at home. So, again, hit his ballpark. They've been producing since really taking over their everyday roles at this point. So, again, that's also half the battle is some of these guys that are free agents, they're in platoon roles. So you don't maybe get the full, experience with them in a week. At least with Gelof and Butler, they're going to be in that lineup every day. So why not take a chance on these guys if you need that help?
All right. So there's offensive help. Let's talk some pitching help. Again, pretty good matchups. And I'm very surprised on Shane Bieber, only 21% owned. I get it. Like, he was so bad to start the year when he came back from the IL. He was really bad. But I think he's definitely turned the corner. Let's start from the top, however. I got Guardians starting pitcher, relief pitcher, Joey Cantillo. He's 22% owned. Wednesday at Los Angeles against the Angels. He hasn't given up more than 2 earned in his last 5 starts. He's got 28 strikeouts and 20 2/3. And he's got some pretty impressive outings against some playoff contending teams. 6 innings, 1 earned, 7 strikeouts versus the Padres. 8 inning, 1 earned, 9 strikeouts at Houston against the Astros. I do like him in this one. I would not be scared throwing him in that relief eligible spot, that role, if you have that in your roster. I would definitely throw him out there on that and get yourself an extra start. Toronto starting pitcher Shane Bieber, just talked about him, Wednesday versus the Royals. He's at home, 3-0 in his last 4. If you take out that clunker he had against the Phillies, that's, in between those 3 wins where he gave up 5 earned, his numbers look great. 18 2/3, 18 strikeouts, 3 earned, 3 walks. He's at home versus Kansas City. This is probably my favorite matchup of the 3. And again, only 21.6% owned is a little crazy, but I get it. I do get it. And of course, A's starting pitcher Gage Jump, 8% owned. Tuesday versus the Twins. You look at his numbers, it's almost like every other start is horrible. Every other start is great. 6 innings, no earned, 7 strikeouts, a win versus Boston. Then he goes 3-2, 6 earned, 5 strikeouts versus the Tigers. Then 6 innings, 2 earned, 11 at Boston. And now his last start, 4 innings, 5 earned, 3 strikeouts at Kansas City. He's home versus an Twins team. The only thing I don't like is that Gage will have to pitch perfect to get the win, just because the offense is what it is with everybody on the IL. But like I said, I do like Shane Bieber. Of the 3, he is my favorite. But any of these guys, honestly, I wouldn't really wouldn't be scared to roll out there.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I'm fine with all 3 of these guys. Look, Jerry Cantelone is kind of been a surprise this year. Kind of been pretty consistent for that rotation for the most part. Actually, I thought he was going to be like the 4th or 5th man behind like Slade, Colonley earlier in the year. So Joey's kind of taken over that role and has been producing. So again, against the Angels, not a bad matchup to throw him out there, especially on a getaway day on a Wednesday like that. Same thing with Shane Bieber too, especially being at home against the Royals. Kind of found his stride a little bit, like you said. If you take away that clunker, Shane Bieber is still slowly finding his way back from his injury. So again, I almost kind of put him in like the Shane McClanahan category a little bit, except I'm not as hesitant, I guess, with Shane Bieber as I would be with Shane McClanahan. Gage Jump, look, rookie season, highs and lows. But man, when he's good, he is very good, and he can strike out a lot of guys. We know the Twins do love to strike out. So again, Gage Jump, am I very confident in throwing Gage Jump out there on a Tuesday at home? I am not 100% sure. But if you have limited options, like we talk about, these are the guys that you take high risk, high rewards with. And Gage Jump fits the bill. He fits that exact bill. He can go out there and give you 6 innings. He could potentially give you 10 Ks. Like, that is his ceiling type numbers. We also seen his floor. So again, that's why we say it's a high risk, high reward.
Right. No, I get it. Like I said, I mean, these are, of the 3, I do really like Shane Bieber. So it's still a little surprising, 21.6%. But all right, let's give some updates now. Hopefully, well, I already know they're really not the best updates, but some of them are all right. You do have Yankees outfielder Cody Bellinger. He could be activated. I think he is going to be activated off the IL and probably starting Monday. I don't know if he's in the lineup today, but I know he's going to be activated. Let me just check real quick.
I hear
he is in the lineup.
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah. So, I mean, you can go ahead and get him activated and put him in your fantasy lineups for outfield. Then Dodgers starting pitcher Tyler Glasnow. He's also going to be activated this week for the Atlanta series. His last rehab, he went 5 1/3, 1 earned, 9 strikeouts. Again, we talked about him last week. Similar to Blake Snell, I wouldn't be any hesitant. That Atlanta offense isn't as scary as it looks on paper. I would roll him out there. He should be able to get you a bunch of strikeouts. He's stretched. He went 5 1/3 with 9 strikeouts. He should be good to go. Here's an interesting one with Mets outfielder Juan Soto. He did sprints on Friday, and he still wants to play again this year. So he is in the right direction. I wonder if he's doing sprints and he's hitting off tees, what that's going to look like as far as a time frame, because there still is no time frame, but he is doing sprints. So there is a good chance maybe he does come back, and maybe if you do make a deep playoff run, he could be there for you that round 2, round 3 semifinals type. So something to look at. Could be very, very helpful because a healthy Juan Soto is still a great Juan Soto. Yankees outfielder Aaron Judge, he began a hitting progression this week. Still far away. Still not going to be there for you in the playoffs, I don't think. Same thing. Red Sox outfielder Garrett Crochet, he began throwing from 90 feet. It sounds like, here's the other surprising thing, the Red Sox, when he is cleared, they're going to use him as a reliever. So he's really going to have no impact on you at all, really, for fantasy. So if you're going to keep him, you hold him. If not, just drop him. There's nothing good can come from that. And actually a pretty decent one as well, Red Sox outfielder Roman Anthony. He went 2 for 2 in one of his rehab starts with a home run. He looks like he's going to be nearing a return if all goes smooth at some point this week. So if you do want to pick him up and you do want to get him in your lineups, I might wait a week, maybe just to make sure the rest of the rehab goes all right and they're good to go and they feel comfortable calling them up and putting them in the lineup. But worst case scenario, you can roll him out there next week.
That's interesting. I'm kind of curious how they're going to use him. Are they going to put him in an everyday role, or is it going to be, kind of a platoon guy just because of the way they've been going so far? Hey, another update too, just real quick. Corbin Burns threw a 20-pitch bullpen session, and looks like he is about to get launched out for a rehab assignment very, very shortly. So they're thinking a little bit after September 1st. I'm thinking more longer than that. I think he needs to get stretched out for sure. So he might be available for you in that semifinal round, maybe final round. But again, just like Nick Pivetta, what are you going to expect from him this year? So for the people that are picking up Corbin Burns in leagues, which is happening, I'm in those leagues. I'm seeing it happen. Don't count on him. Don't count on him being there. Great story. Don't get me wrong. Big Corbin, Burns fan. Maybe for next year too. But not this year. This year, I think it's a wash.
I agree. So, all right, man. Well, we were able to talk about some hot pitchers, some maybe not so hot matchups for them. Same things with lineups, talking about some hot lineups, some not so hot lineups, and then some good sleepers for you to maybe fill up some of those IL slots that we went over. So, hopefully you're ready. Hopefully your last week isn't a make or break week for the playoffs, so you don't really have to take the route of starting a Lawrence Butler and keeping your fingers crossed, but it happens. Every league, there's always somebody fighting for that last spot, the very last week. That's what makes it so fun. So hopefully Mikey V and myself have given you the information to help you successfully win and go into the playoffs. So we are going to be live again Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, bringing you the hottest players from the past 7 days and talk about a couple over and under performers that you might have drafted a little earlier or a little later, depending on how they're performing, and break those down a little further for you. But other than that, good luck on the week. Take the information we give you and fly with it. All right. So for Mikey V, I'm Doug. This is FSAN, and this is Bourbon N Ball. Give us the likes, give us the hearts, give us all that good stuff that comes with that. And again, watch us Friday. We'll see you later. Good luck on your week this week.